It's time to get it, and you know how we get it. Americano, the podcast about all things business and personal growth with your host, Eric Vonheim. Today, I would like to welcome Michelle Mascoto to the show. Michelle, how are you doing?
I am so good. I'm so excited to be talking to you over the phone. I'm thrilled to be here.
Me too, because you have this amazing energy about you. I've been following you for a number of years, not stalking, but following your Instagram content and everything that you're doing. And you just exude this energy and vibrance to you. So it's great to have you on the show.
Thank you. I'm actually pretty honored that you, we'll just call it stalking for reference, but I'm very honored that you reached out to me. So I'm excited to talk with you today. Absolutely.
So for our audience that's listening, share with them, where are you calling in from today?
I am from the coolest place on earth, Houston, Texas, which was a pun because it is hot as heckles out here right now. The summers are insane, but that's where I'm at, staying inside, nice and cool, because it is like Death Valley outside.
Death Valley. So is it fairly common that most people that are in Houston, Texas, this time of year are sort of staying indoors, or are there some people that are just taking chances, driving around out there?
Most people, besides your day-to-day, but most people try to find things indoors, or they're by the pool, but they don't go to the pool until evening because it's that miserable outside. And it's really cool because they do have some really cool things to do. Like they have really awesome, Texans love their beer. And so they have really cool breweries out here, but it's honestly too hot in the summer. So a lot of outside stuff is actually very quiet in the summer. So it's kind of the norm out here.
I see. Or it sounds like it might even be fairly European-ish, where the city comes to life late at night, right?
Yeah, late at night. And a lot of Houstonians actually do most of their vacationing in the summertime.
They're out of there.
Yeah, and they honestly take about, I had never experienced this as a coach in summertime, being, from California, that, California is a vacation state, sort of say, and Houstonians, they take 4 to 5 vacations in the summer. It's just the norm during that time. It's pretty crazy.
Now, speaking of California, you're originally from California, correct? Maybe you can share with our listeners a little bit about your background, where you grew up, and so on.
Yeah, so I am a proud West Coast gal, born and raised in Southern California, and I actually grew up, my childhood was kind of split, but I'll just make it easy, but a small town called Beaumont, California, which is the IE, the Inland Empire. If anybody understands California, they will know what the IE is. So very small town. And then I went to college outside of LA in a very small city, Whittier, called Whittier College, but Whittier, California. And then I made my way to the OC, Huntington, Laguna, Newport, all of that stuff. That's where I kind of ended up. So that's where I'm from.
Those are your roots.
Those are my roots.
Now, the city that you originated in, is that fair to say that's out by the famous Cabazon outlets? Is that the area?
Yeah. So people always tease me when I'm trying to explain where it's from. I'm like, okay, you guys are driving through. There's these little small towns before you hit the Cabazon Mall. Do you remember those? And they're like, yeah. And I'm like, it's like a split second. They're like, yes. Okay, that's where I'm from. It is a beautiful small town, though. It's and that's what I really miss a lot, is just the mountains are my backyard. And it was small, but I didn't mind small, at all growing up. I kind of enjoyed it, actually. My family's from Portugal, so hence the name. My name is, Portuguese, which opens up a lot of conversations because everyone loves them some Moscato, you know what I mean?
Yes, absolutely.
So they actually moved. I don't know why they chose Beaumont, California, to be honest, but they all have their green cards and all of that, and had to learn English, so that's where they just originated, and then it just kind of grew from there.
That's fantastic. Well, we're glad that they did, and because of that, you're here, and obviously you're continuing on this journey. So you grow up in a small town. you move
Mhm.
into Orange County, you go through college and all these things. What is the profession that you end up in? Because what we're going to talk about today is really one of the things is your passion for fitness and health. And there's really two components, right? There's the body, and then there's the other part, which is the mind, which I know you're very passionate about in helping others.
I am.
Let's start with the
I
the
am.
physical aspect of things. Did you naturally gravitate towards a background in kinesiology or something to that effect?
Yeah. So my story is rather cool. I like to say is that I actually was a basketball player, but I did not, due to just, we all have our struggles, but due to crazy childhood stuff, I wasn't really in sports until in high school. And so I started playing basketball in high school, just really just to get out of, to not have to go home. So I just kind of tried out and went from there. And so I was a very late developer when it came to basketball, but basketball opened up so many doors. Like I am
Hmm.
so grateful. From there, I played in college, and then I actually played overseas for a while um,
What
in Europe.
country?
I extended my career. I started out in Denmark, and because I was able to play as a European as well because my family's from Portugal, and I'm like the first generation of them. So I played in Denmark for a little bit, a lot of tournaments in Germany, but I was the longest in Portugal for 2 years. So I actually got to play for the country that my family's from. So um, all of that, I started falling in love with the body and
Hmm.
performance because I was such a late developer. I had coaches that would tell me you're not going to go far because you're too small or whatever. And so I was the type of person that you tell me I can't do something, I'm gonna do whatever I can to prove it, right?
Yeah.
So I started getting in the weight room in my junior college years, and that's when I started like falling in love with just the body and what it could do because it was like enhancing my performance. And I didn't really know what I was doing at the time. I mean, I was still a little baby college girl, just trying to
Hmm.
find her way.
How young
And
were you
then
at
when I
this time?
19, no, I'm sorry, like 19 to 20, 21, yeah, in my JUCO years, and then no, I would say 19 and 20,
19
and
and
then I
20.
transferred to Whittier in their kinesiology program, and I was just madly in love with like mechanics of just like performance. I was in love with performance, and it
Hmm.
was because that's all I did. I was like the gym rat. I was the girl that just didn't I didn't care if I socialized too much. If you were in the gym, I'm gonna socialize with you. If you need to find me, there I was in the gym practicing, practicing, practicing. So really fell in love with just the idea of becoming the best you could be, and that got me to get overseas. And
Hmm.
in 2007, I tried out for the Sparks, which at the time the WNBA was a little bit bigger, but I tried out for the Sparks before I actually went to Europe just to see if I could hang
Right.
because when you're always like a big fish in a small pond, you kind of don't doubt yourself, but you're like, but I've always been to smaller schools. Like I can't. I mean, I didn't play Division 1 or anything like that, but my coaches are like, nope, you're gonna go for it and just see how you do.
Yeah.
And
It's
surprisingly,
good to
I did
see where
really
you are at in comparison to your peers, right? In different categories.
absolutely, and in maybe programs that have like all the elite athletes, I would say,
Hmm.
instead of being the elite athlete of your program. And so it was really interesting, and it opened up just the doors to overseas, and then that's how my overseas journey began. So I graduated with my kinesiology degree, but then I traveled for a while, playing, and I was back and forth grinding through like being an overseas player, which
Right.
this is an amazing experience, but it isn't the easiest. Um,
That's really
and
cool. I mean, it's really cool to me that at such a very young age, when most are focused on, clubbing and going out and partying and really sort of trying to figure out life, you had some clarity on what you were passionate about around fitness and performance and how you can make adjustments to your body to get different results.
yeah, I appreciate that. It was, I think, the way I I grew up, I was doing everything in my power to not ever be in that situation again. And so when I found the passion of what I found, it was just like dive in 100% and just engulf it and be a sponge. But I was all over the place too, I was trying all these things, and you're just experimenting like crazy. And I'm a learner personality, so I wanted to be in any sort of situation I can learn, which is why I was always in the gym, asking coaches, hanging out with strength and conditioning coaches, hanging out with weightlifting coaches, just hanging out with them and being in that setting so that I can just learn and learn and learn and learn and learn and learn.
Right.
Because I was just like a little sponge,
So you soak up all this knowledge around fitness, you have some clarity very young, and then at some point you make some decisions as to, when you move away from basketball, you make some decisions about coaching or training. I mean, how did it come to be? Because it's my understanding you were also a coach in the CrossFit community as well. So tell us about that transition.
Yeah. So actually, my last season overseas, when I decided to hang up my shoes, the year before I was on a really good team and we had won like 3 cups, and I was just part of a really good program. Half of the season I couldn't play due to ID, my green card stuff for Portugal, my citizenship stuff. But anyways, when I switched teams, I would say it wasn't the best experience. And I came from a program in Europe that had or Portugal, I should say, that just had really great coaching, and our team dynamic was phenomenal, and we were champions, and it was just really cool. And then I go to this other team, and the experience was the best. So anyways, I ended up getting injured, and it was quite American. I couldn't believe it. But,
the nerve.
I know, the nerve. So anyways, I ended up tearing the ligaments in my knees, and first huge injury I've ever really had. In basketball. So my body, due to, remember, I only started playing in high school. It lasted a long time. I didn't stop playing or practicing or trying to chase after that dream until I was about 27, 28. So I played a long time, due to that. But anyways, I got injured, and it was an injury that it was just I didn't feel I was taken care of when I was injured, and I needed to come home. I was like, it's time to come home. I need to let my knee heal, so forth and so forth. So I came home. And when I came home, it was really interesting because I always knew I was meant to coach, but when you're an athlete, you go through this incredible psychological, I would say, journey as to figuring out who you are. You got to be careful as an athlete because you start to only identify as that. You know what I'm saying? So,
right.
Anyways, I went through this whole self-reflective phase, and I healed through that process. Well, during that process, I didn't really know about CrossFit. I was too busy training overseas. And this was when CrossFit was still, I don't want to say it's not unique, but it wasn't saturated. It was still little gyms. It was still,
infancy stages, right?
Yeah. And so one of my best friends actually from college, she was managing and coaching at a CrossFit gym. And so came back, and her and I kind of healed my knee. We did our own therapy with my knee, right? Just because, as an athletic trainer, and I did all these things when I was in my off season in basketball. So anyways, so I started CrossFit actually I started just coming in random workouts. She would just come in. I'd go in during open gym or whatever. And then they had a little competition, and they're like, "You want to do?" I was like, "Sure." I was a hot mess, I was like,
I think anybody going in a CrossFit's a hot mess.
Skinny little basketball, this skinny little basketball player that just was hungry for competition. I loved being challenged.
Yeah. And all the movements, I would imagine some of the movements were new to you, correct?
Oh, yeah, they were. Some of them were very because it's jumping and, a lot of power movements, explosiveness, and conditioning, right? And I was really good at conditioning because I was very conditioned due to basketball. So anyways, started just going there and still trying to find my way. So I actually was
So you were a student. You were a student of CrossFit prior to becoming a coach.
For a very short period of time, because I had been building my experience in my off season. So when you're an overseas player, unless you are, I don't know how to say this, super elite, you're not getting paid very much. So
right.
when you're in your off season, I was here, training, back in the States, training full time, working 2 to 3 jobs. And so one would be in the hospitality industry, just serving, cocktail serving, all this stuff. And the other is I was a personal trainer. I was I was like trying to build my own, businesses with boot camps and just,
Trying to make your money, waiting for that
trying to
Gatorade
make more money.
sponsorship.
Like I'm like, yes, yes, yes. In the grand scheme of things, and so I had gotten a job at 24 Hour Fitness in Huntington Beach to
Okay.
run their entire training program there for their personal trainers. But I was just like, I was just a little bit at the time kind of like bored with that. And so anyways, I went and got my CrossFit level 1 after I had been in CrossFit for a while. I'm like, okay, well, let me see what this is really about, because she said, you won't regret it. She's like, my best friend said, you won't regret it. You need to go get your CrossFit level 1. I'm like, okay. So
your friend knew
sponsored.
your friend knew the right prescription for you, knowing that your personality and the competitiveness and yeah, great.
Yeah. So I got sponsored to go get my level 1 because it's a very hefty investment, right? So anyways, so I got that. And then my first gym was CrossFit Riot in Brea, California. They hired me after looking at my resume and just what I did and stuff. They hired me on the spot, and they wanted my goal was to be to transform their gym. And what I did. So I started falling in love with it felt like when I was in a CrossFit gym, I love the team dynamic, because
Right.
that's what I came from. I came from like, it's awesome. It's encouraging. It's uplifting. It's hard work. It's grit. It's grind. Like I love that setting, and I feel like I thrive very well in getting people to overcome certain moments. And I just love that. So I was at CrossFit Riot. Then I started programming, and then I started implementing strength programs for just females, and then things like that.
So you started bringing some of the knowledge that you had into the CrossFit space as well.
Yes, because when you come from a strength and conditioning background, movements are the same. Like I wouldn't say like I studied gymnastics at all,
Right?
Because gymnastics were a hot mess when I first started. But the principles of correct movement patterns are the same.
Yeah.
And so you're just kind of taking what you know, and then again continuing to be a sponge and just applying it.
Yeah.
It's really about applying it as a coach. Like you can have all the knowledge in the world, but if you don't know how to apply it to somebody, you're going to be in trouble.
Right. And you made a good point previously, which is the community aspect. And I feel that's something that certainly differentiates CrossFit from a lot of other programs, which is the community that it fosters. I find in my own personal experience, there's a lot of just great people in the CrossFit community. And most of the time, these people are number one, investing a lot of time and money into their health and their body and all those things. But these are usually the same people that are also doing things outside of the CrossFit community to improve their lives.
Yeah, I would say that what CrossFit did, so what Greg Glassman did was incredible, just because he brought out, his principles and methods, right? And he just combined those principles and methods, and he thrived off of a community aspect. And then it just trickled, and his ideas sprinkled like a wildfire, and people love it because everybody wants to belong to something, and they want to belong to something that is encouraging and is uplifting, but it's hard at the same time. And
right.
And you know what I'm saying? So that's what I love about it. And I love that it brings out opportunities for people to get better outside. So I remember, because when I was coaching at Ruination CrossFit, which is a very competitive gym, and I remember this one gentleman coming up to me so excited because and this is what I live for, right? So for the first time, he was trying to figure out, and he had been really unhealthy and just overweight for a long time, and his joints hurt and all this kind of stuff. And he came out to me and he gave me the biggest hug, and I was like, what are we so excited for? And he's like, I got to take my son surfing today, and in my whole life, and he's probably in his late 40s, early 50s, like my whole life, I've always wanted to be able to get up and pop up on a board, but I've always been so overweight and like not confident to do it. And he's like, and I did it. And he was just so,
wow.
It was just like pure joy over his face of just, this is why I come in and grind. And this is why, to be a better human outside of your gym, because that's the reason that it's there for, it's not only to be competitive. It's to make you a better human, and it's to bring life back to your life. And that's like what I absolutely love about coaching people. And it doesn't have to be in a CrossFit gym. It could really be anywhere, but you do see a lot of that in like
in the CrossFit community.
Yeah.
I really love that, and obviously you're playing a key role in people's lives and certainly the community as well. What I'd like to do is bring this forward a little bit, because it's my understanding at some point you left California, and to our listeners out there, per your previous mention about being in Texas, you made your way to Texas. Now, we're not sure how you got there. Maybe, I don't know if there's a trail you took.
Said, this is where
So how did you end up in Texas?
It was interesting because I was not working. I was working. I wasn't looking to be in Texas. I love California. I love California so much. But this opportunity arose, and I am a faith follower, and I'm also a risk taker. And I believe in you have to take risks not knowing what the result is going to be sometimes. And this opportunity came up, and it's actually not a CrossFit gym. And I've been in CrossFit gyms now at this point for 6 years. And I was currently managing a gym in Orange. And so this opportunity came up to open up, to actually cultivate this gym. Because what was happening in CrossFit is I was going to gyms to help transform and build it up, but it wasn't mine. It was almost like, cleaning up the dirty work and then having to build it up, which is fine, because I think that's how God created me to be. But I wanted to cultivate something that hasn't been built yet. So they offered it to me, and I prayed about it, and I was like, okay, I guess I'm moving to Katy, Texas.
Texas,
and,
here we come.
Here we come. And I ended up here, and I've been here for 3.5 years now. And it was not an easy transition. It was, and I've lived and I've traveled like younger. And so in different environment changes aren't a big issue to me. Like I've been, in poverty places, and stuff like that on my mission work. But transitioning from California to Texas for a permanent lifestyle was interesting, and it was harder than what I thought. But that's how I came over here. Is I took a risk to cultivate and open up a gym out here, and that's how I came to Texas. But I didn't even come and visit here. I just prayed on it and took a risk, and I'm really glad that I didn't, because if I didn't do that, I probably wouldn't have came to Katy. So It's interesting how it works, and then I would have missed out on all of these lives that have been changed. So it's crazy when you take a risk of what can come of it.
Absolutely. Now, how long do you think it took you to transition where you finally felt like a Texan, or is that something that you still are going through today?
That's a really great question, Eric. I don't know if I feel Texan yet, but I feel, well, okay, it's been kind of interesting since I've moved here. Because when I first moved here, coming from a drought state. So when I first moved here, my first year, we had some nasty floods. Okay. And everyone's like, oh, it's not supposed to be like this. And then you're getting introduced to weather, which is like
real weather, not California weather.
Not California weather.
You know what's so funny about California is, have you seen the memes that float the internet sometimes where we'll have a little storm here, a little rain, and then the next day there's a lawn chair blown over and it will say, we will rebuild.
Yes, because we are so spoiled with weather. It is ridiculous. But that's where I came from, right? So that's what I've known. I've known to be outside all the time. I've known to be at the beach and just sit. Like, it didn't have to be this like huge ordeal. It's like, no, I'm just gonna go sit at the beach and I'm just gonna, enjoy life and just sit, and like that's a happy day for me. And look at the mountains and stuff like that. And so that's a huge adjustment, because it's kind of miserable out here in the summers, and so not being able to go outside and not going everywhere, like many places close to like hike and do all that. So that was a hard adjustment, because I was very claustrophobic, and I felt very like,
that cabin fever going on, right?
Yes, and it's so weird because the sun's always out, but it's interesting.
It's like teasing you. The sun is teasing you.
It really is. You look outside your window, you're like, it's a gorgeous thing. You go out, it's like a blow dryer is just like smacks you in the face. You're like, oh my gosh. Yeah. So it's really hard to get used to. And then the second year, so the first year we had that flood, which was bad. It was my first like huge flood experience. But then the second year was Harvey. And so I know everyone there was Harvey.
Yeah, we all heard about that.
Yeah, and so Harvey was really, really devastating. But here's the beautiful part. I have never in my life been a part of a city that is the fourth largest city in the United States to come together as if we were one big neighborhood the way I did in Harvey. And it was so beautiful, Eric. I was like, I would live here
just
forever
for that.
just because,
You
it's like, it was strong. Like I had never seen that before and I've never been a part of it. And it was like strangers just
helping each
even
other.
after the water had like died down, it was just, it was insane. Like I don't know the word for it, but it was like, Houston is very proud to be Houston.
Yeah.
And like, that's a beautiful thing.
You know what's interesting about that point that you just made? I was speaking with somebody not too long ago about a similar thing that I felt, but it goes back to September 11th. And I made this point that it was probably the first and the last time that I had truly felt connected to every citizen within the country on a level that you don't generally experience when there's no significant tragedy occurring. And it's just unfortunate, right, that it takes tragedy to bring people together. But to your point, it was a beautiful thing, right? I mean, the fact that it does bring people together is great, and hopefully there's some hopefully that trend continues thereafter.
I totally agree, but it's interesting because any sort of strategy makes us like reflect and be grateful, which is so unfortunate. But like, think of it like when there's a death that's someone close to you, you start reflecting on life. Like, oh, I need to do this. You start reflecting and like you have this almost like motivation, like drive to be better, right? With the time that you have left. And then it kind of, if you allow for it, it like trickles away, right?
Yep.
And anywho, being a part of that was great. And then after that, Houston won the World Series. And so it was just like this collection of events where just Houston was just like so proud of to be
Houston proud. So you are part of that now. You're part of that community, and that's wonderful.
Yes. Yeah. So I would just say that Houston is a melting pot, and and I think that's why, I mean, people are so accepting of each other. I mean, you have your, every city has it, but it's just a really cool niche of people. And it just seems to be that people are very, they're just like neighbors, no matter where you're at, even if they don't live next door. It's a very neighborhood feel, I would say. And people, they talk to each other all the time. They smile at each other like strangers. They say, hello, how are you? And there's no agenda behind it. You can walk in the store and you just, hey, how you doing?
Just
and
genuineness.
Just a genuine acknowledgement of another human being. And I really, really, really like that.
I love that. So I want to take us forward because it's my understanding that you're starting yet another path, another adventure for yourself this time around some online coaching and something to that effect. Maybe you can share with us what you're up to.
Yeah, absolutely. So I have been coaching people now for 15 years, and that is a long time to be in gyms and truly running other people's business. I wouldn't say running entirely, but just being a huge impact in other people's business. And I'm now in a season in my life where I really, truly want to impact a lot of people. And I have people reach out to me a lot saying, oh, I wish you lived here so that we can train together. Oh, I wish you lived here so you can coach me. Oh, just reaching out and stuff like that. And I have this huge desire to build a platform to empower women, but on a lot of levels, like mentally, physically, and spiritually. It's not just like fitness. It's never been just fitness to me. It's always been broader than that. My love for sports psychology is going to be intertwined with this online coaching because I think the mind is just so
powerful.
Mind is so
everything starts in the mind, right? Everything.
In the mind. And I'm in love with it. I just love to seek out the why and find solutions and change people's patterns and like understand why they're thinking that way and why is it so hard for them to not like follow a meal plan? Why is it so hard for them to like not have outbursts of anger or confidence issues or body image, or everything is surrounded by the mind and what we experience. And it's my job to figure that out and help people find that and become more whole human beings. Like instead of, them seeking out all these materialistic things to fill all of these empty voids that can just totally be fixed. And so online coaching is the answer. And so I'm kind of building my business online with that. And I mean, yes, helping people feel confident in their body and dropping body fat. And it really just depends on what their goals are, right? But overall is creating a happier human. I've always loved doing that. And to be able to call it mine, I think is something that I'm ready for, and something that is also risky. I think I'm in a season in my life too where I've been at the gym I was at for 3.5 years and truly like running the entire business, but it's not mine. And, but I don't think I'm ready to have a gym on the floor. What I mean is like, you know, I don't know if this is where I'm meant to be. And, so in the online way is for me to go. I can reach, you know, nowadays you can reach
anybody. Well, the technology is phenomenal nowadays, right?
Right?
I mean, we have so many
beautiful.
ways to connect.
So many ways to connect. And so that's what I'm doing now. And so I'm building that and right now actually. And
now are you going through the process of learning the tech and doing this yourself, or are you partnering with somebody locally that's helping you with some of the tech? How's that working for you?
I'm actually going through a school. Like, think of it like a real estate. You know, when a realtor needs to go through real estate schooling and they invest in all of that, they're like investing in their business. So that's what I'm going through right now. So you don't partner with anybody. You just pay like a tuition, and then
learn the skills that you need.
Build it organically, and you know, you can have a thriving business from there. So it's really phenomenal. And it's scary too, because I thrive off of building relationships. And so the challenge is going to be phenomenal to be able to get strangers, not people that really know me, but strangers to know your worth as a coach, you know, online, and know that you're going to pour into them, because there's a lot of fitness gurus out there. Like there's a lot, but to be able to take my authenticity and sprinkle it and get somebody to want to hang on to that and change their life, like that is my goal.
Yeah, and I like the fact, and you mentioned this earlier, that you really focus on sort of 3 pillars, you know, mental, physical, and spiritual, right? So whereas I think that some people just tend to focus on, you know, meal plan or competition prep or just the physical aspect, and I think that your approach and is very holistic, and I think that's the type of stuff that really resonates with people.
Absolutely. And, you know, mental health it's near and dear to my heart in so many ways, not just because I love it, but it's because it was a struggle of mine growing up due to my mom having mental illness, and I was taken away from her due to her mental illness, and I was taken away from her at a very young age, and I don't really know where she's at anymore. I just know she's owned by the state of California. That's all I really know. But she's so medicated, like she's just gone. You know, now she's just kind of, you know, walking around. So I fell in love with the psyche of the mind for a very long time. And then to be able to intertwine it. And then I realized how powerful mental health was as I was getting older, in the sense of it doesn't have to be an illness, but if you don't take care of your mental health, it can trickle down into some serious rabbit holes, you know? And so sometimes we focus so much on the physical that I'm like, no. You can cover up and mask a lot of stuff that you're going through. And that means like like mental health should be like a number one priority, because it will rise to the top at some point in your life. Like think about something that you struggle with that is like a direct connection to either something you battled with as a child. It doesn't matter what it is. Like mental health, it just is in every single aspect, right? It's huge.
And I feel there's a relationship between the physical and the mental side for sure, because I mean, think about it nowadays, especially in the internet generation where, you know, take Instagram specifically, there is such a deep desire for people to want to feel loved and accepted and admired, and through a lot of the content that they share, and it's all driven based upon this endorphin, this you know, this comment that really feels either a very healthy or negative response to you know, their behavior online.
Absolutely. And you know, I'm really intrigued by like patterns and behavior and our identity, and all of those 3, like we need an awareness. And so I think with the whole, you know, I think the technology and social media now it's a beautiful thing until it's abused, right? And I think we always like sit on that line abusing it because we only identify ourselves with what our social media status is or what, and it's very powerful because it's really sad, and
the platforms are trying to make some adjustments. I'm not sure if you're aware, but for example, I know that Facebook, Instagram is doing some pilots right now where they're actually removing the like information. So for example, let's say we're following each other. I could see the number of likes I've received on a photo, but you couldn't see how many likes that photo I posted got, because they're starting to figure out, what's the relationship with the mental health component side of things and that healthy balance, right? Because they're starting, I think, to recognize that, to your point, that there's just some unhealthy. It's great, but until it's not great, right? So they're trying to solve that.
That's awesome. That's beautiful, because I really think that people are so thriving off of acceptance in such a wrong way.
Well, they look at their whole identity that way, right? They sort of look at, well, I only have 1,000 followers. Nobody likes me. And therefore, they take this in the real world and they start to feel bad about themselves and they start to compare themselves against others. And I know that's something that happens on the physical side. So it's really interesting to me that, you have a passion in both of these categories, because I think that you're the perfect fit to be able to articulate the healthy physical component, but also the healthy mindset of that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you for that. And I'm really excited for what is in store and just who I can connect with. And just, if my video of either a word that I have or encouragement or just tough love, because I'm all about tough love. I think this world today sugarcoats a lot of stuff, and I think the world needs a little bit more accountability and a little bit more realistic way of doing something, and to attack like identity and patterns and awareness instead of just making it seem like everything is okay and do you boo boo and like all of
do
that
you boo boo. I like that.
Do you boo boo and do what makes you happy, because sometimes do you boo boo and what makes you happy is not the right move for us, because we're so driven off of our uncontrollable emotions. And so, you know what I'm saying? If I can give people a different perspective, and if my one video gives one person a different perspective, then it did what it was supposed to do.
Well, I'm very, and I'm very excited for it. I think it's wonderful, and it's certainly timely that after, 15 plus years of coaching, and really even before that, going back even younger, that you're now taking all this sort of accumulation of experiences and your passion, and now you're doing something for yourself. I think that's wonderful, and I wish you the best on that journey. And the fact that you're also learning to do this yourself is wonderful. It reminds me of what I read on your Instagram, which was mold into the better you. And I think that it speaks to that point.
Yeah. Thank you. I really appreciate that. I just, everyone has struggles in different seasons of their life. They really, really do. It's when we get stuck in a season for years, and that's when it becomes a real problem, and I've had my share of struggles, I've had my share of mistakes. I've had my feelings of, depression, and I've had my feelings of just not feeling good enough and getting into wrong relationships because of it, and making some really silly mistakes because I didn't understand self-worth and all of that. And so to be able to help people with that is just, it's almost like my way to give back. So I'm really excited for what is in store. So
I love it. With that said, I want to wrap it up with a few questions that I'd like to ask all my guests. And the first one being, and this is perfect since you love to travel, clearly from your story. But if you could only travel to one more place in the world, where would it be and why?
Oh my gosh, I love to travel. That's so hard.
Any particular country come to mind?
Well, yeah, I have 3 that are tied. This is just hard. So, Santorini, Greece has been on my list for so long. Why? Because it is a culture that I am not familiar with. It is absolutely beautiful with the architecture and the water, and it's just stunning to me. Every time I see pictures, my jaw drops. And so I think that's a place that if I can travel to one more place, I think I would be happy if I went to Santorini, Greece.
Next question. What is your favorite book and why?
I read so much. This is going to sound really cliche, but I would say the Bible. And people can have their ideas on it, but here's why. The Bible from front to back gives you every single life lesson you need. And it has so much truth to it. And I love it because that book challenges me. It makes me reflect. And so that's what I value the most of. And you see a lot of leaders and stuff of the, like, in the 1% leaders, they pull everything that they have from the Bible. And so that book is scary. It's truthful. And it makes me reflect, and it just holds me, it keeps me grounded, is that book.
Excellent. Next question. What's the last random act of kindness that you did for another individual, and how to make you feel?
Random act. Oh, recently, last week, there were these people moving into my new apartment complex, and it was just hot as heck outside. And I just happened to like drive up, and I was like dropping my groceries off, and I just went down there to help them unload so it'd be quicker because it was so miserable outside. So I just helped them.
Very nice of you.
How to make me feel? It made me just feel. It was a good feeling, but I was just like, they must be miserable, and I don't like people being in like that misery feeling. So I just felt good to being able to help them. Like, they were very, very grateful. But I think, kindness needs to come just naturally,
Right. Well, that was very thoughtful of you. Last question.
Thanks.
Where can people find you online, Michelle?
They can find me on Instagram. They can find me on Facebook, or my email. If you type in Michelle Mascoto, I am the only Michelle Mascoto in this world, which is awesome because I've Googled it and I've Facebooked it. I'm the only Michelle Mascoto. And the same thing with Instagram, but you have to spell my last name correctly, which is Mascoto, because most people spell the wine. So make sure you have the A and the O correctly. And then my email is michellemascoto@gmail.com.
An audience of one. I love it.
Yes. Audience
I
of one.
love it. Well, Michelle, I want to thank you very much for your time today. It's been a pleasure having you on the show. And I think that some of our people out here listening are going to find some great inspiration in your journey. And for many, it's just going to ignite a passion to get into the gym or take a walk and being mindful of not only the physical, but the mental side. So thank you so much for your time. And I hope you have a wonderful day.
Thank you so much, Eric. I appreciate everything that you're doing on this podcast. It's a beautiful thing to see.